this is a really rare one, Danny. Because we actually had this. We sent you the questions beforehand and asked you like, are these okay? Because it's there's some water that we can't tread, which is really respectful that you're even doing this. So thank you so much.
Yeah, I appreciate you.
So I don't know if you're on Twitch right now. We got chat up here. We'll try and get some questions from chat as we go too, if we find a good one. But if there's anything that you can't talk about, just please let us know on
you
the
can just
spot.
tell us no.
I can't talk about that.
All right.
So yeah.
But I think as soon as it's people are gonna find out, and that's okay, right? That they know.
Yeah, there's no problem with that.
Okay, cool. So, is it okay? Is it bad if I say it, or
No, it's okay.
Okay, so for people that don't know, Danny is a UI designer for Final Fantasy XIV. He won't be able to answer any questions directly related to the company or the game itself, so this interview will be based around just UI design in general. We'll try and take questions from chat that fit everything within those rules, but if we can't answer those questions, I hope you guys are okay with that. This is a crazy opportunity for us, honestly, because, I mean, if you know anything about the Blluist channel,
We love 14.
and everybody here is a 14 nerd, so...
Yeah.
uh,
Kneel before our god.
yeah.
No,
It's extremely...
it's not like that.
Because I was messaging you, and I was like, I don't think you understand. You're kind of like the rock star. Like,
Yeah,
you definitely...
sure.
Yeah. So... some questions here, and usually we start off with a question from Blue, but I think it could be like a double question here. And first question is, what made you want to be a UI designer, and also what is a UI designer for people that maybe people don't know?
Okay. Well, UI stands for user interface. So I, as a UI designer in video games, I design everything around the icons that you click, or buttons, or even the controller, mapping how you interact with controller, or anything that you have to do something for the game character, or something do something, right? So everything concerned about a user interacting with the game is part of this is UI design. I got started in the industry as a game programmer. Actually, I went to university for game design course, and then I specialized in programming there. So my first job was as a game programmer in Brazil, where I lived back then. But as a game programmer, I wasn't really, I wasn't appreciating what I was doing, because I wanted to create more and be more part of the design team, actually. So as soon as I entered this first company, I climbed it up to be a game designer. And after two years, I think, I applied for some companies here in Japan, and one of them told me back then that they couldn't afford me to do my visa.
Oh, okay.
So I as you can see, I'm a Japanese descendant. So I gathered some documents and applied for a long-term visa here. I came here in Japan and I applied again in this specific company that I'm working with. And I got a job as a UI designer in Square Enix. And that's my story, basically. But yeah,
That's an insane
so cool,
story.
yeah.
That's insane.
No, it's just that I had this, how can I say? I have a privilege to have the visa process very smoothly back then. But yeah, I wasn't planning on being a UI designer when I started in gaming industry. But I really like it to program the how the user interact with the game. So I think that it was just a natural course of things.
That's crazy. Like it's, I mean, I'm trying to like pick my words here just because I don't want to like. I think everybody here watching and listening right now is just like full of questions, just so intrigued. But I just have to watch what I say because there's gonna be a lot of questions you can't answer here. But if I may ask, when you do UI designing, right, for anything, it's just such a new thing because like we that play games, it's hard to almost appreciate how good UI is sometimes because the better it is, the more you don't realize it. Is my theory.
That's right.
You know what I mean? Like it's the smoother it is, it's like there's no problem, and you only notice it when it's like kind of
really
wonky,
bad.
right?
And it,
Yeah,
it really
you're
bugs
absolutely
you,
right.
Yeah.
Right? So it's like this invisible thing that just makes it very smooth for the user. What's something that when you create UI design, what's something that you try that you really, really like your goal or what you want to do as a UI designer? What makes a UI designer good in your eyes?
Okay. I think UI for games, it's kind of different from say UI from an app, for example, because the UI in those games will interact and influence some kind of game design. For example, in Animal Crossing that you guys were playing, the UI are part of the game design. You know, it's unlockable. It's not something that you have since the beginning. Everything. So the UI serves as an unlockable achievement. So when I design UI for games, I have to always remember that whatever I do or design as a UI, it's not just about the usability or how the user will interact with it. It's about game design itself, how the game will feel, and how the game will how this UI will be part of this game. So the same thing happens in I think bad UI are implemented in the game. Like the game itself could be really good, but if you don't really understand how you use it, or if it's really tiresome for the user to interact with the game, you will just drop the game. You know. So I always have to be very conscious about how the UI will be like influencing the game design, and that's I think the thing that is more important when designing for games, and that's why I really I always remind myself about that.
That's so interesting that you've mentioned that UI is a unlockable content. Like it
That's true. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's
Crossing,
totally
you do
true.
Have to unlock like certain things you can do. Yeah.
Do you ever have to like this is what I thought when I was playing games. It must be so hard to design, to create an in-depth game. There's gonna be some level of complexity, right? But with UI, I feel like simplicity is also an extremely big factor when it comes to UI design. Something that's accessible to more people. Is that something that you think about a lot when you create UI design? The balance?
Yeah, that's accessibility actually is a big topic in UI design. You can see in most of the big games, like games from Blizzard or even Square Enix, that even the colors of the button are like picked specifically with the accessibility in mind. I would say about 14, for example, but a lot of the colors of the text, the color of the button usually are associated aren't have rules around these colors. Not only in 14, but actually even in 7 or games from Blizzard like Hearthstone or recent Overwatch. Every color of the button or every shape has some kind of rule behind them. So it's it's obviously the shape or the color itself will be good for everyone. Like we that can play normally and still identify these shapes as some kind of good things or bad things. But for people with low vision or that have hearing problems,
Mm-hmm.
or have how can I say people that colorblind people. Those people will use those shapes or those colors more than the UI as a whole. So it's something that we always try to remember, that you have to be accessible first, because then this way everyone can play. People that don't have special necessity won't really bother about it, but people that have those kind of problems, we really appreciate when you put this kind of effort in your UI.
Right, because there's some people that focus on, or only able to focus on specific parts of the UI versus people that, as a whole, can. That's very interesting. Yeah, I'm just like, yeah, that's so. Toasty in chat has a really good question and says that besides the projects that you worked on, are there any games that you think has really good UI?
Yeah. No, well, I think there's a lot of good UI around. And for example, I really like the Hearthstone UI from Blizzard.
Okay.
I think it's the rare case when the UI itself is the game itself. It's not. It's kind of flashy UI with a lot of animation, and usually those kind of UI are bad. But it's so like inherently developed for the game. Yeah, it's so part of the game design that it's really brilliant.
Okay.
That's one kind of UI that I really like. The one that are really part of the game. And let me see another example of a UI that I really like. Well, I can. I really like I'll talk about a lot about online games, because that's why I'm developing. But I really like the Guild Wars 2 UI.
Okay.
Yeah. Actually, this game is what I saw first as a developer, that UI could be a great thing for me, because I have never played an online game that could be so, it's different. You can see a lot of online games like Korean MMO that has a lot of text over the screen, and a lot of tiny text with a lot of numbers. And Guild Wars 2 was in another direction. It isn't perfect. Like a lot of things or functionality is yet to be desired, but the foundation are there. There's a lot of elements that are really you feel like part of the game itself. So that's one I like too. Not because it's good per se, but because I think it was really how can I say, it was important to me to know and see this game.
So like Guild Wars 2 and Hearthstone are kind of, is it kind of like almost like a industry thing where everyone's like, yes, this is good?
No, I think
Is
it's
that
more
personal?
like my personal opinion about
Okay.
it. For the industry thing, I think it's really difficult to say this is a good UI or this is a bad UI, because a lot of UI that are really good, we can't say that because we really didn't bother with that, Just like a recent game that I really like the UI is the Zelda Breath of the Wild. It's simple, it's well executed, and it's all around perfect. But it's in every game it has a little flaws all over, because you can't develop everything with the time frame, like in Zelda, I really like it to have a menu or a functionality in UI to cook more items that I want, that cooks more item per action. Just like in Animal Crossing, you can't craft a lot of things like in one button. You have to craft over and over.
Yeah,
Yeah, the interface in Animal Crossing is great, but there's always this kind of missing functionality that I probably didn't have made into the final release because of production costs or something like that.
Okay, yeah. So
That makes sense.
yeah. Dark Steel actually has a question that is actually one of our questions that we have too. So I wanted to ask that. But what would you, any advice for somebody that wants to get into the gaming UI field? Is there any advice that you would give?
Okay, UI design in games usually aren't any kind of courses over there. You can do an online course of UI design in games. But recently, the industry itself, for if you are willing to enter in the big industry like this big company with more than 1,000 employees, you can study UI in web design. It's something that it's curious because a lot of big companies are starting to hire web designers and web developers for UI related development. So if your goal is to enter in, say, Capcom or Square Enix, for example, studying a web design is a great way to enter. Also, when you build a website, you are building entire application made of UI. So I think that's good.
Okay.
If you are willing to enter in a smaller company, like a company that made some indie games, you probably will like to study Unity or Unreal Engine. Those are the industry standard for creating games with low costs.
Mm-hmm.
And those engine have like a specific framework for UI, that you can't learn without it. So I think you can either go to a web design road, or you can just download the Unity or Unreal Engine that is free for personal use and just study it or make UI in it.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a lot of things that you could do to practice your UI skills, and I think is it fair to say that a lot of gaming companies are looking for people that can do UI design, not just in games but other like websites or applications and stuff like that too? So just kind of build your skill with that, plus having your eye out for maybe smaller companies to start off with.
Yeah, that's right. Also, I forgot to mention that the technology used in web design are slowly entering the game industry.
Mm-hmm.
So, for example, the last year's Game of the Year finalist, the Control from Remedy, they used a technology based on a web browser to create a UI. So if you are a web designer, you probably could do develop the UI within that game. So I think it's a safe to assume that if you know web design, you know like half of the game industry UI design competence.
That's super interesting that there's such a like overlaps there, because I've always thought they were like two completely separate things.
I thought maybe you had to go into like a special studies or like special like courses to like learn all the ins and outs. But
so actually, a 14 in chat is asking like, how about just gaming industry in general? But I feel like the answer was there, where it was like the gaming industry is definitely looking for people technology wise that's not just gaming specific, but also applications and websites. So just get your knowledge out there get skilled in a lot of web-based development, whether it be in games or not.
Practice.
Yeah.
Like practice, try it out yourself.
Would that be correct? Yeah.
Yeah. Also, it's really rare to see people that went to gaming courses or gaming-related university in the industry. Most of the people went to the programming courses with no gaming-related subjects, or went to the art university, or even graphic design. So I don't think it's there has a ideal way to enter in a gaming industry. Just pick up the subject you really like and go for it.
Wow, that's so interesting. That it's like the people that you see around aren't specifically going into gaming, sections of school or whatever. But it's just it's the creative people that can apply it to games, is what it seems like.
I always thought like gaming, like getting into the gaming industry was like very difficult, and you had to have like certain specifications and like things like that, because like I wanted to go into the gaming industry before I decided to go into fashion, and I just thought like, oh no, like I don't you probably have to prepare so much, like you would have to know like web design and like maybe like graphic design and all these like different things to be able to like even apply. But it seems, I guess it's maybe more accessible than I originally thought.
Yeah, it's definitely really creative.
I
think.
Yeah, I think it's the only requirement for most of the gaming company is that you have made a game in your life. Like you downloaded Unity or Game Maker or something and made a game from the start to finish it. So you have the knowledge of how the game development process works. But that's something that everyone can do at your home. Obviously, it's not an easy task to do it alone, but you can do it. You just download it. Like you can make a Tetris. You can make some silly game, and that's enough for most of the company. Like they want to know that you weren't there because you just see the job and you applied it. Most of the company want to know if you're really willing to commit yourself to the game, and not for a generic person that if Google or Apple has a new vacancy, you will slip out for those companies.
That's really cool. Like it seems like a lot more
you just
leeway.
Want someone who's
motivation.
Dedicated. And,
yeah.
Makes sense.
That's a really good answer. How about like kind of related to that? I'm sorry, I'm asking a lot about like working in the industry, but how about getting a job in Japan in that field? Because a lot of people that I know come to Japan and they always ask about, like, hey, great, what's the go-to job? And the only thing that I know just from my experience from friends around is always a teaching job. And it's very few people come here that I know of in the small circle that I know that go into gaming or anything like that. Do you have any advice for somebody that is maybe thinking of moving to Japan, that is trying to find themselves in that kind of?
I would talk about some of my colleagues that came abroad from their countries to Japan to enter in the gaming industry. First and foremost, I think Japanese, the language skill is really important there, because the interview will be in Japanese. A lot of internal stuff is in Japanese, and they won't bother explaining a lot of things for you if you don't speak Japanese.
Okay.
So first thing, you have to be at least good in Japanese.
Mm-hmm.
And the second thing is that you have to bring something that usually the recent graduate student, the shinsotsu, won't
guys.
bring.
No.
Yeah. So usually it involves experience. So something that the shinsotsu people, the young grads, don't have is experience. So if you have experience in working in any kind of industry or technology that they want, you have a lot of chance of entering if you have Japanese and some kind of experience. Also, if you aren't sure about your experience, if it counts in, and you are doing like teaching jobs, a lot of localization section of gaming companies uses methodologies that are same methodologies for internal like English lessons that those English teaching jobs use. So you can apply it as a localization, or you can apply as a foreign project manager.
I see.
And
okay.
a lot of things like that.
So
There's
yeah.
a lot of people that work in localization that climb it up to be a developer itself, like a game designer.
Oh,
So
really?
I don't think it. Yeah. And specifically, the case I know, they started as localization from English to Japanese. No, Japanese to English, and they little by little they climbed it up. Person climbed it up to be a level designer.
Wow.
So I don't think it's pretty flexible internal in Japanese company too. If you have the willingness to stay in the same company for some time, they can really change you up.
That's really cool. Like, there's always, it's almost like I wouldn't say a side door or anything, but it's a different entryway than you expected, and it's more accessible. But you end up in kind of where you want to be, and
Yeah.
the industry gives you that leeway to do that, depending on company, of course. But there's that possibility.
I will talk about my how I get the job, but the thing that they really liked about me that was that I did some websites back then, and also I have a really close relationship with Western culture. So there's a lot of things that people that lives here don't have. Like they really don't know about Reddit. They aren't really sure about what people are talking about in game discussion forums.
Mm-hmm.
They can't pick up the nuances of some people saying things about this game or that game.
Mm-hmm.
So they really like to have this, more westernized designer.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's something that really played in favor for me.
Because you already had that. That's just kind of what you were used to doing. So
Yeah.
that's cool. So there's like a nice match too. Yeah. This might be a question that it might be hard to answer, so just let me know. And this is gonna be really straight up. Do you get any sleep? Like like that's like when it comes to like any game development, right? It just, I have this image that there's like no sleep,
Yeah,
like
it's like all the time is crunch time, and you're like there's
Okay.
lots of deadlines, and
I'm sure it depends on the company, but is it like, do you get rest? Is this?
Yeah. I sleep a lot.
that's good to
Good
hear.
to hear.
That's really
Okay,
good
that's
to
good to
hear.
hear. Yeah.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of crunching culture all over the globe.
Mm-hmm.
In Japan isn't any different. But I have I can say for the UI section, but UI usually are in the end of the pipeline for development.
Mm-hmm.
Usually UI are decided on the planning phase, like in the first 30% of the game development, and you can't change after that because there's a lot of functionality that are tied in your core. So if you break something in the UI, you will break the whole game.
Oh, the pressure.
So there isn't much things to change change later in in development when it comes to UI. So there isn't the crunch so much crunching culture around the UI itself. But yeah, on the art section, that make the cutscenes or make the visual effects. The slight change in the direction or the slight change in the story, probably we have to redo a lot of things, and that's the section that are most affected with crunch. But yeah, for UI it isn't a big deal.
Okay.
Actually,
That's
for
good.
me, my job is like 8-hour job, and I don't really do overtime. Obviously, when it comes to deadlines, I do some overtime, but I've never worked on weekends or worked more than 12 hours a day.
That's good to hear.
That's really good to hear.
That's
Yeah.
really especially because we were talking about like how to get in the industry, and if Dan was like, "Yeah, you never get sleep," that's like that would have been very worrying.
Well, but I mean, if it's something you're passionate about, I feel
yeah.
like it's probably easier to do. But like sleep is very important.
Yeah.
And so
Oh,
yeah,
yeah.
I'm glad that you're getting enough sleep and
Yeah.
you're not overworking or anything. So
You know, when people either work on something for really long, where maybe it's like a video or maybe a song or an album or something like that, they'll listen to it, their own things, maybe once or twice to check it out, but a lot of people are like, I don't want to listen to my own stuff. Do you play the games that you worked on?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
But yeah, I know this feeling. It's not the same once you start developing it. Actually, I think once you start developing games, playing games aren't even the same thing for you after that. But not in a bad way. You still enjoy it, but you start picking up things like, oh, the game design probably thought of about that or about this, or oh, this UI probably I made of this or that. But no, overall you can still enjoy a lot of those games. When it comes to game that I developed, it's kind of strange because you know what will happen, or you know what's gonna be in the future, and you are always playing. In case of MMO, I mean, you are always playing old build for you. You know,
Right.
this is the old thing. Oh, like, and also you have to grind for a lot of things that you're like you can just buy it in your when you're developing this.
Right.
So
the
there's a lot of things
experience
that it's
different.
strange but still enjoyable. I think in case of MMO, it's still enjoyable because of the people. You know, there's a lot of community involved. So I don't think it's changed that much. Or I know that for AAA or single player games, most of the game devs have to play it before it ships. So they really don't play it afterwards. Just get the game because you get for free, and yeah, you put it on the shelf, and that's it.
Yeah, I would be like, I could totally understand that side too, where it's like, especially because you said from the time that you finished, right, and you turn it in, and until when it's a playable thing, it must take a long time, especially because you said the UI is probably like 30% when the game is 30% done. So that you must have already have so many more ideas in your head that you're like, could have done that, like, you know, by the time it comes out. So it must be like almost like a, oh man, okay, I'm gonna do that for the next game, or you know.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
right.
Has it? So this is a kind of linked question that I really wanted to ask, but so you can play your own games. When people are in films, they always say that it ruins their experience in a certain way because their eyes or their senses go straight to the cinematography, and you don't have that pure enjoyment of a film anymore because you notice things because you're a professional at it. Did it in any way ruin a gaming experience for you, for someone that's a professional at a very specific, integral part of a video game?
I think if it's really, if it really bothers the person that are working in game industry, this person can no longer develop games because playing games are an essential part of the job. You know, you have to enjoy it to make something enjoyable.
That's true.
But yeah, just like the when I was in university, one of my professor told me that game development is like the first matrix. When you have the red pill and blue, once you know the truth behind it, you will never enjoy the same thing. You may enjoy it, but yeah, you know why you are enjoying it. So it may be different for you afterwards.
Yeah.
And that's how I feel it today. I really enjoy it, but I know most of the time why I am enjoying this. So it's really strange to know why I am enjoying a game. The game itself is always a waste of time. There's no there's no way I can say, oh, hey, let's play a game to be better at something that that could be your better improve your skills. You really don't improve your skill that much playing video games casually. Obviously, there's a lot of benefits of playing video games, but you really don't get better at driving playing like Gran Turismo. You're better off really driving a real car.
Okay.
But yeah, but people have to play video games because it's fun. So when it comes to me, I know I am playing and having fun, but I know why I am having fun. So yeah, sometimes it gets strange, but yeah,
Right.
Usually I enjoy it.
Right, because that like being naive about it is gone now.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the
You're right.
magic of it is kind of gone because you already know like what's going on in the back, kind of thing, right?
Yeah, especially when it comes to things that developers do to mask some bugs or some things that aren't finished enough, you know. So when the game steal your camera control and you can't move the camera, for example, you know that something weren't as polished as they wanted. So maybe they don't want me to look at something that aren't good.
Okay, I see.
Oh my god, yeah, that's exactly what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Like it's like I never think about that. But that's something that somebody that's definitely on the inside noticed. Like, oh, can't go here because there's probably wasn't finished. Okay, and then something like that.
I think it'd be like it must be almost like also maybe like a little nervous like when like a game you worked on that does get released and then you get like the first wave of like people comments and stuff. There must be times where you're like, did I do okay, or like, oh, I should like maybe have like thoughts where you're like, oh, I should have done this, or like, oh no, maybe I messed up on here, or like when you're even playing, like you probably have like thoughts of like, oh no, I need to change this next time, or like, yeah. So it must be like almost like very weird feeling where you're like oh, you're not working, but you're still kind of thinking about work while you're playing it.
Oh yeah, 職業病, right?
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah, but I think in games, the most different part of in how the game is developed is that once you develop a game, you usually before releasing it, you have to send it to the QA session. Like they will try to track your bugs or see inconsistency and everything like that. And usually in this phase comes out like, oh, this is inconsistent, this is bad, this is good, this isn't working. So you can just expect what the user will say with those feedback. So usually when the game is released, I don't really care much about what people are saying, because I know the failures are there, and I know that I could do better already.
It's been so long since
I couldn't fix it because now there's time, there's a lot of other constraints in the development. But yeah, I don't really bother with those comments.
Yeah, I think
Unless it's something that people are just straight up mean. Sometimes it hurts, but yeah, that's okay.
Yeah, which kind of brings me to a question that Roy in chat was talking about. And if you can't answer this one, don't worry about it. But how much does users' voices get to the devs in these kind of situations?
Okay.
Like, do you guys seek out it? Is there how much does it kind of get implemented into the development of a game?
Okay, I'll talk about the gaming industry in general.
Yeah.
But usually for players' voice, there's a specific team for this, that community manager or community team that will filter out what players are saying to give the feedback to the devs. So usually the developer alone can just pick it up and just, bring to the team, hey, let's do this or let's do that. It's a good idea. But usually there's a lot of you can measure how much the people really want it from one comment. You have to have a lot of people saying the same thing to see if really the community as a whole wants it or not. So usually there's a team of people specialized in community management that will bring the feedback to the devs.
So that's like the most filtered Twitter feed ever. Like the most professional filtered Twitter feed where just all the trash is not there. Like the best of the best just gets the devs.
Like actually good. Like it could be compliments or criticisms or like ideas.
Yeah,
it's filtered through.
I see.
But obviously the devs will see the forums or Reddit or any community that are built around this game. But they will just they won't see past the third page probably. So if it isn't a hot topic right now, probably the community team will pick up.
And it's sometimes you don't want to see that stuff too, so it's like it ruins it, right? Yeah, I feel it. Do you have any like it could be like a long night thing, but did you have any holy crap I screwed up moments that you can think of?
I don't think so. I usually when I screw up, usually my lead or my boss will say, hey, I think you're gonna screw up. So I just reverted back.
Oh, that's good. That's nice.
That's very supportive.
So you didn't have like long nights at just in front of your desk, be like, wow, like that, like a classic college kid moment where you're like, can't get it done, not realistic, where I'm screwed.
Oh no. I think the game development is a team, it's made in team. So you don't have all the burden just for yourself. You have to share the burden. If you screw up, everyone screw up, and the burden is for everyone. No one could do it. So that's how it is in games.
Wow,
unless you are working alone,
That's like literally the teamwork makes the dream work.
Yeah.
Like we say that all the time as a joke, but that's like actually it. That's actually very, very wholesome.
It's also really it's very comforting.
Yeah, people looking after each other.
You have like a whole team who will be there to kind of support you, and you can support them, kind of thing.
I think if there is someone that carry this burden alone, the person will probably quit the company because there is no teamwork involved, or that they will feel that the leader aren't sportive enough.
So and with teamwork, I feel like right now specifically with the whole corona thing going on, teamwork is probably needed more than anything right now. How has COVID and this whole quarantine situation affected the way you work?
Well, I think I can say for the most of the game dev community that most of them are working from home, and it didn't really change it much. A lot of presential meetings become Skype meeting, but just that. And I think the thing that the concern most of the people in gaming industry is that you can't have that, when you're working together in some feature or something, or testing something together, you don't have this moment of clarity, because you're not doing it together, sharing opinions. You have when you send feedbacks, or when you write some feedbacks, you are always thinking alone, and part of this teamwork things are lost, and some good ideas are lost too. But well, I think it's just that most of the development aren't user treat, because like this Moon Studio from Audi, then the platformer from Microsoft Studios, Audi and the Blank Forest.
Oh yeah.
They don't have a physical studio. They are all they are a virtual studio made of people from Russia, from Japan, from United States, and they were always like that, and it really it works for them. And I think everyone can make it work, but yeah, not everyone is user to it, and not everyone have not everyone are made for remote work. I, for example, when I started doing remote, thing that I felt the most is that my experience of being in front of the computer isn't the same,
Yep.
Back then it was like, oh yeah, it's my time, it's time to really forget about work and just feel relaxed. But now I have to be in the same place and in front of my computer and work like really hard. So sometimes you really can't switch back to relaxing mode to work mode. But that's something that I'm working on, and I think most of people are trying to overcome it too.
I believe, yeah, when your bed is 5 steps away from the office, it's definitely a different experience, right?
Yeah, you were going through the same thing.
Yeah, I was going through this. It's just so weird because for example, Blue would be streaming, and I would be sitting in this seat right here that I normally stream at, but I'm doing work, and it's just so weird. It's it doesn't make sense. It's hard to focus, but you gotta do it, and then there's also good things, like you can go outside, maybe like for just like a walk or something to the store, which you can't do at work. So there's that freedom, but still it's extremely, to blur that line is something I think we all have to get used to.
And there's this strange pressure on yourself, right? Like you have to do this, but your body aren't cooperating, your body and mind aren't in the work mode.
I know, right? First day I was like I was like, you know what, I'm gonna be professional, I'll change. By second day, just sweats and t-shirt, and just working. It's super bad. It seems like even when they're everyone's having the same experience, no matter what kind of work they have. But it's good to hear, because some people they're not able to work from home, and so they end up like losing jobs, unfortunately, stuff like that. So I think it's cool that you're still able to have your job and still go hard at it. What's a moment that made you feel that, because you told us that you didn't initially go into this industry necessarily wanting to be a UI designer, but it kind of branched off in that way. Kind of the opposite question as the one before, but is there a moment that made you feel really happy or glad that you were a UI designer?
When I see that people talk about the UI I made or my team made as a industry leading example of the good UI, it's really fill my heart with joy,
Yeah.
And especially because UI itself isn't something that are praised by the player. People are just, oh, okay, this is a bad UI, and when a good UI came out, they don't bat an eye. So when people notice the UI that I developed, it really makes me feel good.
Yeah, and there's just so much that I want to say, but I know I can't. But yeah, and I completely. It must be a very heartfelt moment, very proud moment, when that specific thing that you're working on is kind of something that is highly praised. And we can stand for that for sure. Actually, Honey has a question, and I don't know if this is what she intended to ask, so I'll try to word it. If this is not the question, please let me know. When you release a game and somebody finds a bug and it kind of becomes like this, somebody breaks the game and it kind of becomes a big topic. As somebody that developed the game, how does that make you feel? Like, is it, because I think for a lot of games it's inevitable that happens at some point, especially with the fan base of certain games. Is it like this big oh my god moment? Like, how does the gaming industry, do you think, in general, kind of takes that?
I think it depends on the studio. There's a lot of studio that will like call you in middle of the night, say, hey, you need to fix this afternoon or this night, otherwise the game will crash for everyone and we'll lose money or something. And there are studios that are more laid back and say, hey, okay, we will have a meeting and see what we can do. So I think it's all depends on the studio culture. In studios and projects that I work at, it usually, unless this bug are really game breaking, like you can corrupt your save or corrupt the saves of others.
Okay.
It really doesn't get a real emergency call. It's usually like, okay, we have like 2 weeks or 1 week to know what is happening and fix it as soon as possible.
Mm-hmm.
So I really don't know what in other countries or other studios are doing, but this is my experience with those kind of things.
Okay.
And speaking about being a hot topic for MMO in general, unless you usually when those kind of nasty bugs are released, most of the time that the dev uses to fix this are trying to reproduce the bug. I think it's not just in MMO, but in games in general. Reproducing the bugs and knowing why the bug is happening is the most difficult part.
That's okay. And that takes time too, right? To reproduce something that they didn't even know existed, honestly. So it's definitely it's important. And it's like how fast they can kind of get that, how skilled people can, I guess, make bugs almost, or like find it. I feel
and that's why most of the bugs don't get bugs fixes aren't released in like the day after or soon after the bug is discovered, because they have to took the time to know what's happening, and after the bug is fixed, to make sure that they didn't break another thing in the process.
That's right. So I mean, that's kind of the answer. Like, maybe if you guys find a bug, and because sometimes you see people online like, why can't they fix this already? Like, blah blah blah. It's because they're reproducing it, testing it, and seeing if by fixing the bug it doesn't break something else. So
people are saying, most of the people aren't really concerned about bugs because the bugs only occur in 1% of the player base. But when you try to think about 1% of all the players that are playing in the moment. There's a lot of people.
Oh yeah,
Like
for sure.
there's a huge number. So yeah, we need to be really careful about what we are releasing.
Right, and especially with the age of the internet, once that becomes that 1% starts talking about it, everyone likes the drama, they like the crazy stuff, so it'll spread to even more. Even the people that
Yeah.
don't have the bug are gonna spread it, right? So it
Yeah.
becomes a bigger problem. So I totally understand that. Yeah.
Really nice to know that they like instead of just patching it or like they just try to like fix it like with like kind of like a virtual band-aid, they kind of try to make it to make sure that it won't happen again in the future kind of
Yeah.
thing. I think that's very reassuring as like a player too, to know that they are taking that extra time and the extra measure to make sure that even though yes they did discover a bug, but they are doing whatever they can to make sure that it doesn't happen again kind of thing.
Is there anything as maybe a UI designer or just game dev in general that you feel like it's a misconception? Like people have an image of UI designers like this, but in reality it's different. And anything like that?
Oh yeah, for UI, I can say that people usually associate UI only with the buttons or the health bar all over the screen.
Yeah.
When in reality, this is like 30% of my job. Most of the time, the UI designer are concerned about ergonomy. So, for example, when you are in charge of mapping what each buttons will do when pressed, or for extended period of time of playing, if the user will see the stress of repeating this action or not. Also designing about data, or in the age of internet, right? Like everything is online. So how would I display some information for the player without exposing private data for other people? For example, in MMOs, when you log into the MMO, there's a lot of data from other players that are like being sent to your PC. Like the appearance data, naming data, and this is all network traffic. And how smooth you can do those kind of data traffic. What should I send to the player? What should I do to limit the ability of player to use this information for malicious purpose? Those kind of things are kind of things that game developer in general do, in UI do too. Like for I will have an example, like in games that like you are in Animal Crossing, for example. There's a bug that you can duplicate items if indefinitely, like to make a lot of money out of one object. And those kind of things can I don't know because I don't work at that, but I can be UI thing, like how the data about this specific item is handled from UI perspective. How these specific commands are treating the data behind it to make this happen. These kind of concerns are really my things in my job. Like you need to in this particular scenario, you just need this information for the player, because otherwise people can like break stuff or use this private information for malicious purpose. So yeah, it's not just about what you see. It's about the behind. What are you doing too?
That's so interesting. So it's because honestly, before doing this interview, just UI design definitely seemed like
It's
visuals.
just a visual thing. Yeah.
But it's
When I
tied
put
to
the-
so much stuff. So even
Yeah.
like a duplication bug is something that is almost, to me, I wouldn't associate that with UI design at all. But it could be tied to that because there's so much information that UI has to, a UI designer actually has to think about when creating. So it's definitely like way more than what we see.
Yeah. Okay. Like duplication bugs, it can be avoided if the game, the game programming side block it. But if it's an online game, for example, those kind of programming is tied to the server, for example, and if everything that the user do are like processed in a server, the server will overload. So most of the things will need to be like limited in the game's client, the user side. And when it comes to user side, the team that will limit what you send or what you could do is the UI.
I see. So yeah, it's either like there's just so much information tied to it's almost like what we see plus the things that you make sure we don't see.
Yeah.
Right? So it's kind of like doing both things on the user and not server side, but on each individual console or game data. That's super interesting. Yeah.
Oh, also there's one more thing that is a major part, and you talked about it a bit earlier, but about accessibility. Like when it comes to games, a lot of like battle designers or game designers in general are really concerned about the battle itself or the level itself, and not really how the user you battle it using a like generic controller or a special controller like the Xbox One.
Oh yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
And this making sure that the battle works for everyone is one of the UI designers' task. Hey, these kind of mechanics wouldn't work for this kind of situation or this kind of controller. So let's make changes to this to make sure things are smooth for everyone and things like that.
That's crazy.
So, oh my goodness, yeah. That like opens up a whole new...
Yeah, a bag of worms almost. Where it's so hard. Oh man, I mean, I don't want to get specific here, but I mean, I totally agree. And it's like, I think there's some MMOs out there that it's very hard to do. If it's like a PC one, it would be very hard to do it on maybe a controller, like a PS4 controller, Xbox controller, because
it needs
there's
like specific movements or specific buttons that you need to press, or you need
hot
more
bars.
than what's
and
available and whatnot.
And there's
exactly.
And there's some MMOs that do it perfectly, amazingly, where even like between me and Blue, we have different
controllers.
We use different controllers, which is like it just proves how good it is. So it's and kind of talking about bugs, Regular has a really interesting question. Were there any bugs that you saw that was almost a happy mistake, where it actually became something positive in the future, or is that something that it's always something bad that you need to patch up?
Oh, yeah, there is.
Oh.
I can't talk specifically what it was, because it will really expose the the developer.
Yeah.
But yeah, there was a thing that we do once that had a texture bug in it, and the thing that we intended to weren't displayed as we intended to. So, but people thought that this was some kind of homage for another game.
Oh.
And it was like, and we were like, okay, the next patch, I think we should fix it, and like fix it to be more like likely be a homage for this specific game.
That's so
cool.
cool.
That's so cool. Yeah.
So awesome.
But yeah, sometimes accident like that happens.
Oh, that's really cool.
Yeah, that's really cool.
So there are some happy accidents.
Yeah.
And that's really cool. Thank you so much, and we'll see you soon,
next time,
Dan.
yeah.
Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you. Bye bye.